The movie starts by showing a tough fight between two guys, Yuri Boyka and Arkady Davik, in a super secure prison called Chornya Chalmy in Russia. People in the audience were really into it, especially because they were betting on Boyka to win. There's this guy named Gaga who's connected to the mob, and he, along with the prison boss Markov and some other officials, set up these fights and make a lot of money from betting on them. They don't really care about the fighters, they just care about their own profits. But Boyka, as usual, wins the fight, and he's never been beaten before, not even in this one. Next, we see George Chambers, who used to be a famous boxer, but now struggles to make ends meet. He does things like filming ads for alcohol to earn money. After one such shoot, he goes back home. But then something unexpected happens. Someone tricks him by putting cocaine in his Bible. When the police find it, they arrest him right away. Poor Chambers couldn't do anything to prove his innocence. They send him to prison, straight to Chornya Chalmy in Russia. When Chambers got to the prison, Markov, the boss there, welcomed him. Markov was actually a big fan of Chambers. They told him to shower and change into the prisoner clothes. Chambers didn't think he should be in prison because he was set up. So he tried to resist by fighting the guards, who weren't as tough as him. But because of that, he faced more trouble from the guards who treated him unfairly and from some other prisoners who didn't like him being there. He ended up sharing a cell with Stephen Parker, a British guy hooked on drugs. When Chambers walked into the dining hall for lunch, everyone's eyes were on him. But Chambers didn't seem bothered. He just enjoyed his meal. Then Yuri Boyka and his crew showed up. The other inmates all stood up as a sign of respect, except Chambers, even though Boyka was also a prisoner. Boyka, feeling confident, approached Chambers and tried to start trouble with the ex-boxer. Before things got out of hand, the guards stepped in to stop them. Soon after, Chambers' manager, Phil, visited him. Chambers asked Phil to find the best lawyer in the US to get him out of prison fast. Phil couldn't promise anything but said he'd try his hardest to find a good lawyer. He asked Chambers to be patient because it would take time. Chambers got annoyed and left. One day, Chambers helps Parker when Boyka's guys are bothering him. Chambers fights them off and learns from Parker that the prison is run by the mafia, led by Gaga. Parker tells Chambers that Gaga framed him for having cocaine, which is why Chambers ended up in Chornya Chalmy prison. Gaga did this to force Chambers into fighting Boyka in the matches he sets up. After some of his guys got beat up by Chambers, Boyka decides to strategize. But Chambers just ignores him and walks away. That night, Boyka gets ready for his upcoming fight. Meanwhile, Gaga pushes Markov to set up a fight between Boyka and Chambers, but it's not easy. Everyone's eager to see Boyka fight. Chambers eventually shows up at the arena and watches Boyka win his match with a tough fighting style. Boyka notices Chambers watching from above the ring, but Chambers doesn't seem to react. After the fight, Markov calls Chambers to his room and asks him to join the fight. When Chambers refuses, Markov orders him to do tough physical work, making him feel humiliated. At his lowest moment, Chambers is saved by an old inmate named Krot, who uses a wheelchair. Chambers goes back to his cell afterward. Meanwhile, Parker, who's secretly using drugs, gets bullied by Boyka's men again. They pressure Parker to convince Chambers to fight Boyka. Boyka's men not only bother Parker, but also try to team up against Chambers while he's in prison. Chambers manages to stand up to them with Krot's help. But then the guards show up and blame Chambers for causing trouble. They throw him into solitary confinement in the sewers. Krot visits Chambers, brings him food, and advises him to stop rebelling and follow the rules so that Markov and the guards won't bully him anymore. Chambers seems to think about Krot's advice but doesn't say anything. After getting out of solitary confinement, Gaga talks to Chambers. He tells Chambers he could have been released earlier if he agreed to fight Boyka, a fight arranged by Gaga and Markov. Phil, Chambers' manager, had actually agreed to this and signed a contract with Gaga for the fight. Chambers doesn't want to at first, but after enduring harsh work in the prison sewers and seeing how brutal the guards can be, he reluctantly agrees. Once Chambers agrees to fight, both him and Boyka start training rigorously because they know the other is no ordinary fighter. Chambers sticks to his boxing skills and experience. Meanwhile, Boyka practices a range of fighting styles, including kicks, throws, and grappling, aiming to embarrass his opponent in the ring. Boyka's men also approach Parker, who's using drugs, but instead of bullying him, they give him an important task for the fight between Chambers and Boyka. The long-awaited fight between George Chambers, the former boxing champ, and Yuri Boyka, the reigning champ, finally begins. They both start fighting fiercely, each wanting to win. Chambers is surprised by the many new attacks Boyka uses that he hadn't seen before, but Chambers manages to defend himself, staying calm and using painful punches when he gets the chance. Meanwhile, Parker, who's helping Chambers, gets a visit from one of Boyka's men. They give him a bottle of water mixed with a drug that numbs pain, planning to give it to Chambers later. Actually, Parker didn't want to hurt Chambers, but Boyka's men forced him to do it. Chambers drank a bit of water from the bottle between rounds and passed out after Boyka kicked him hard, so he lost the fight. When Chambers wakes up, Krot tells him Parker put drugs in his drink. Chambers gets really mad and goes to confront Parker in his cell, but he's shocked to find Parker hanging dead, feeling guilty, with an apology letter nearby. After finding out Parker was forced by Boyka's men to drug him, Chambers confronts Boyka and accuses him of it. But Boyka denies it, saying he's never cheated to win. Chambers, fed up with how Markov and the guards treat him and the other inmates, beats up Markov thinking he'll be released soon after fighting Boyka. Instead, Markov punishes Chambers even more by tying him to a pole in the cold snow and letting guards beat him. It's revealed that Boyka didn't know about his men drugging Chambers. He finds out and asks them about it. Because Boyka believes in fair play, he kills two of his men who drugged Chambers, even though they thought it would help him win. Meanwhile, Phil goes to Gaga and asks for money to leave the country because he's done with Chambers and his failing career. Gaga gives him a suitcase of cash, but then orders one of his men to kill Phil. Back in the freezing prison, Chambers, feeling hopeless, gets a visit from caring fellow inmates. They cover him up and give him warm food to help him stop shivering from the cold. This makes Markov furious. He gathers the inmates in the cold and threatens those who helped Chambers. But something unexpected happens. All the inmates stand up for Chambers, so Markov and his men back off. Seeing how Markov mistreats Chambers, Gaga protests because he doesn't want his top fighter treated like that. Gaga apologized to Chambers for the drug incident, as he believes in fairness in fights. Chambers then asks for a rematch, hoping it'll lead to his release, and insists on a fair fight. He also asks Gaga to provide jackets for all the inmates so they won't be cold anymore. With the rematch agreed upon, Chambers and Boyka train hard again. This time, Chambers gets mixed martial arts training from Krot, a former soldier who also trained Boyka. After training, Chambers visited Krot in his cell and asked about the picture of a little girl on the wall. Krot explained that she was his niece, whom he hadn't seen in 19 years. He then shared why he ended up in prison. His brother committed a robbery, and Krot got blamed for it. Fed up with the guards' mistreatment, he fought back and accidentally killed one of them. When he tried to escape, they shot him in the leg, leaving him paralyzed and in a wheelchair for life. Krot then revealed his real name to Chambers, which was Nikolai. Before the rematch started, everyone was really excited because they had been waiting for it. They placed big bets on Boyka and Chambers because they both could win. Gaga and Markov had the best seats, enjoying the fight, while Krot, now Chambers' coach, was by the ring. The fight was fierce and intense, with both fighters exchanging combinations, grappling, and throwing each other. Because they were both skilled fighters, the fight went on for quite a while. Chambers realized that Boyka wouldn't quit and had great endurance. He also knew that if the fight dragged on, Boyka might eventually overpower him. So Chambers changed his tactics. He used a technique Krot taught him to immobilize Boyka and ended the fight by breaking Boyka's leg. This victory showed that Chambers still had fighting skills and made him the new champion of the prison without any doubt. As per the agreement, Chambers was set free from prison after defeating Yuri Boyka. Gaga gave Chambers a briefcase of money as a gift, but Chambers used it to buy Krot's freedom instead. The movie ends with Chambers pushing Krot to the train station for a joyful reunion with his niece. Krot expresses gratitude to Chambers for helping him start anew with the winnings, while Chambers thanks Krot for his support and training. Shortly after, Krot reunites with his niece, and they share a heartfelt embrace as Chambers walks away. So the moral of the story is even in the toughest battles, friendship and fairness prevail. Remember, if life gives you lemons, make sure to buy your friends freedom with the lemonade money.